Hello, Crawley fans, and welcome along to the second edition of On the Ground with myself and Preston Johnson. Preston, before we jump into anything, I think we are going to have to address the elephant in the room. No beard.
That is true. That is true. It's been about a week, I think. How do you think it looks? I'm putting you on the spot.
I think it's good. It's very different.
All right, that was an honest one. I can see it. Maybe the camera wasn't on you. I can verify that actually wasn't honest. It looks okay. I'm still getting used to it, but you know. Maybe it got us Benjamin Tanamu, maybe it didn't, but I was a little superstitious the night before the deadline and also bored because I was staying up till like 3 a.m. in California doing deadline stuff over here in the mornings, and then just went for it. There's nothing else to it. Just decided to have some fun. You only live once, they say. So, by the way, it's been way too long, and we tried to do one of these before the window ended, but we were just too stacked, and then I had to get home for some things last week. So I think we're stuck with the name because we never addressed it, and we never really jumped into episode 2 at near the end of August like we planned. So we're just rolling with On the Ground, and we will start doing these more regularly, I promise. But we're good to go now, and I know you didn't really hate the name anyway, so I think we'll just keep it average and see if the content can improve. Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Well, as we say, it's been a busy start to the campaign. How have you found it so far? Obviously, we'll talk about the first couple of games first. 2 wins from 2 in the league. You can't really get off to a more perfect start, can you?
You can't. I don't think it's possible. No. I think we've played well in multiple games, including like Wigan, for example. We played really well and didn't get a result, which is just part of the variance of football as a whole and sports in general. And then we've had poor showings like Barnsley. So I think it's a combination of getting accustomed to what it takes at the level, week in, week out. Also players getting to trust each other, and new players coming in from over the summer, quite a few, some playing different positions and trying to figure out what's going to work best, and Scott and his staff kind of devising those plans and strategies and systems. So it's a mix of everything, and definitely can't complain getting the 2 early wins. Played well in some of the cup games as well, which maybe you want to talk about a little bit. But overall just trying to keep things positive and stay on this trajectory, which we're happy with.
Yeah, as we spoke about in the first episode, there was obviously a lot of change over the summer. A lot of the old faces from last season departed and a lot of new ones in. So it must have been, I suppose, somewhat of a relief to see us, get off to a great start, because it sort of settles the nerves, doesn't it? And, the feeling around the place was really good after the first couple.
Yeah, I mean, you guys probably get a great sense of it too, but I think the fans were pretty nervous, especially with a lot of the new faces. And so it did. I'm more nervous because I'm nervous for the fans and how they'll view me and others, like if I'm being completely honest. And so for me, getting those wins was like an ease of some stress because I knew that the fans were in a good place. I had a really cool opportunity to sit with the fans away at Cambridge. I really enjoyed that, and I got to just be in the mix, and everyone was stoked with how that result ended. And just I think in that moment, I was like, we're going to be okay. It's going to be really hard still this year. And nothing's guaranteed, but I felt like everyone realized, okay, like we have a chance. Like Crawley Town can hang and survive in this league, and that's the goal now. Just got to keep pushing forward and keep improving every day.
Yeah, who's impressed you so far? Obviously, we've had plenty of new faces through the door, but has anyone sort of made you go sort of stand back and go, wow? Is there anyone that's really sort of taken you back?
The way I think, because we try to do everything with data and analytics anyway. Like Punucha Kamara's been our most impactful player by the numbers, just to give people some context for how our model's going now. He's played fewer minutes because we've been easing him in. He's been getting fit. So I think he's been great. I think Josh Flint is maybe one that's even surprised me some, and the numbers also say he's been one of our most impactful players. So I've really enjoyed seeing him. And if I was to give you one more name, I think I'm trying to think of someone new that has been. I'll just do this because I love Jack and I've loved him forever. But Jack Rolls in that game against Swindon, just some of the strikes and some of those goals he scored, and just his like attitude and demeanor. I just love Jack. And so to be fair, I have to give him a shout out because those were 2 of the best goals I've seen in a long time. And then you see like Papadopoulos in a later game trying to do the Jack Rolls impression, and he puts one in too. And it's just like, anyway. So I think that was one of my favorite moments too so far in the season.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of miniature cup run that we had, obviously beating Swindon and then going to Brighton, getting to play against the Premier League side, and we spoke to Scott a lot about it earlier in the season. It was great to sort of put in a performance like that against a Premier League side, and I mean it was the result, as we've said numerous times, didn't necessarily reflect the performance, but we were very good against them, weren't we?
I agree. And it's interesting, so because everyone talks about analytics, at least in my circle, and a lot of fans try to understand it or like make fun of it sometimes, like the XG, whatever. Like the XG in that game actually wasn't great, but it was also, XG isn't like perfect. It isn't a science. And there were so many moments in that Brighton game where we almost had a shot. Like we were that close on a cross or an opportunity or an action that would have been a high value XG opportunity that we barely missed. And that's not accounted for in XG. If you don't have a shot, there is no XG. It's a 0. And so even though we lost the game and the result looked like maybe we played worse than we did, and if you look at the XG, it kind of mirrors and images the actual result. I think we played a lot better than that one. That's like a pretty contradictory result relative to how we played and some of the opportunities that we created.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we've had a lot of new faces, as we said, so let's move on to the transfer window. I want to talk about Pan, as you spoke about him there. Obviously, his data from previous clubs would have played a massive part in why we signed him, but how much of him was dictated to you by the fact that you knew he was such a strong fans' favourite here and it would go down as well as it did, because the reaction we got on social media to him coming back from not only just our fans but across the EFL as well was really, really good.
It was like our most viewed or impression tweet and Instagram post and everything. The answer to your question, truthfully, and I hope people trust me on the 0. Like we don't actually care.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a derogatory or mean way, but we're not signing someone that we don't think can actually help us get points and create goals. So it was just nice that it happened to be someone that we valued as an actual player that obviously has history here that everyone loved. I remember tons of DMs and tweets and stuff over the last 2 seasons of people telling us to sign Kamara. So like I knew it would go over well, but that had nothing to actually do with the decision making at the end of the day. It's all relative to how much is it going to cost us, relative to our budget, relative to how they grade in the model and what Scott thinks and his staff about the player, and then we make a decision. So I was glad everyone was happy. Obviously, it was a nice win, but it wasn't intentional for that. And he's one that hasn't played a ton of minutes the last 2 years, and that we're hoping gets a real opportunity to shine again here in Crawley.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit off camera beforehand. I don't think since the last episode went out, we haven't actually, despite having lots of the transfer window left, we haven't actually lost any further players. No one else has moved on. Do you think that had a big impact on the fact that we've had such a good start to the season? Because I suppose to be settled even before the transfer window starts, maybe then just bringing a couple in. Obviously, Pam was a couple of days before that Blackpool game. Do you think that had a big part of the success to the start of the season?
I'm not trying to reinforce what we've said before, but a lot of the reasons players went out is because other clubs just wanted them and were willing to pay a lot more for them, and they deserved to move on, or there were clauses in contracts. And so that's why that happened, and they all happened pretty quickly, which was scary for everyone. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think I referenced, look, we're going to bring players in, like try to trust us at least the best you can. So the intent was never we're going to just sell all these players and do it. You do it on purpose in some instances, but most of them were out of our control. And then, from there, a lot of the players that are still with us, we're glad are here. So it's nothing that we intended to do. And then if someone had come in and offered £1 billion for someone, we probably would have said yes, even if it was at the end of the window. So it's all just kind of relative to what the market and other clubs are offering and saying. And but the truth is, we always knew we needed to have X amount of numbers, meaning how many players that we can trust that can make an impact, and we need depth. And that was our goal, was always to add quite a few. I don't know, we ended up with, was it 18 signings maybe?
So, yeah.
I think we're in a pretty good place now, but we it was scary early on, and I totally get it. I think I referenced this in the first podcast we did. A lot of managing, especially when your budget is pretty small, managing the recruitment window is when you spend. And everyone was worried when 7 or 8 go out the door without 7 or 8 coming in. But for example, if we had overspent early, we probably can't get Kamara at the point in the window we did, right? We were patient and we, had the ability to bring in Kamara. So it's just one example, but like you have to play, Will Swan's another one. We brought him in. Was it announced like on deadline day?
Yeah.
I know it kind of was in the makings for a day or two prior, but that's another one. If we had spent earlier on, and we love Will and we're really excited to see what he can do for us, we thought he was one of the most impactful strikers in League Two the last 2 years when he was playing at Mansfield. We probably can't bring in Will if we had done something earlier. So like you have to embrace the risk and like the uncertainty. And so I just wanted to kind of reinforce that, because that was ultimately our strategy, is how can we get the most for each penny at the end of the day. And we feel like we did a pretty good job.
I want to talk about deadline day, actually. I want to give fans a bit of an insight to it. Firstly, what does a deadline day look like for you? Is it constantly on the phone? Is it sort of staying up really late? Especially this one, what was it like?
Yeah, so I had arrived back in California like 2 or 3 days before the deadline day, which was Friday. So for me, it was. I'm not even just saying this to like, oh, look at me. Those 3 nights before the window ended, I slept a total of 8 hours, and that was because I was in California. So I was up till 2 or 3 a.m. and then up at 5:30, 6 a.m., which would have been, it's an 8-hour difference for time zones. So I took a break during like lunchtime here, pretty much is when I slept. Whether I was there or here, though, the actual question you're getting at, it is a lot of phone calls and math and like equations, if that makes sense in some way. We already kind of have had our targets. We've done a lot of preparation in June, July, most of August. So come deadline day, it's a lot of negotiating with the clubs, if it's a transfer fee, the agents themselves, to try to agree to weeklies. You hope you're doing that in advance so that you are able to hurry and push something through, which is where the football secretary comes in, where they're drafting the contracts, making sure all the terminology is good and the language makes sense and that it gets through and is approved by the EFL and the FA. And especially when you're doing one like Benjamin Tanamu coming from Nigeria, there's a lot of that detail that needs to make sure is handled. We spoke to a few lawyers throughout the process too, to make sure we were just getting the best possible advice, so that we could push things through as quickly as possible. So it's a lot of football clubs, transfer fees combined with agents and player stuff, but it's actually a lot of, I spoke to Lewis probably 10 times a day those last few days, and it was a fun time, but it's really stressful and hectic. And then at the end, if you can do well and you feel good about it, then again, you're like, I went pretty nicely. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else like unique that happens. I think the last day you kind of expect what's coming. The one that was, I wasn't joking about like the beard thing. Like 3 days before the deadline, leading up to that, we thought we were going to bring in Benjamin Tanamu. We at least had a pretty good opportunity or chance to. And then there was a day that we weren't sure with work visa stuff that it would get completed in time. And I was pretty down. And it was that night that I decided, I was like, if I shave my beard, maybe Benjamin Tanamu actually, ends up becoming a real possibility tomorrow. And it happened. So I will take all of the credit for that. I'm mostly joking.
Yeah.
But that one was one that like was a big curveball. I don't know if people get that one. Just wrench. We were talking about wrenches earlier, trying to fix the mic stand. That we had to, try to figure out, and we did, luckily. But those are ones that there's just so many variables that are unexpected all the time. So it's hard to give too many examples until they just are present, and then you have to just figure out a way to solve them. There was another thing with the Will Swan one, without giving every single detail, but it was regarding the transfer fee itself and some of the ways that was structured, and we had to figure out a different way to do it so that it worked for us and for them, and we did that, like the final day. So yeah, there's a lot of those little things. You just got to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, not a lot of people actually will know the processes of signing someone, can't even get my words out, specifically on deadline day, because there's certain rules, isn't there, where if you have put the paperwork in by a certain amount of time, it can still go through. Because I think people were quite confused of how we announced Benjamin, and obviously Bradley Ibrahim as well. We announced Bradley on Saturday morning after the deadline had closed. and then we announced Benjamin on the Sunday. So I think a lot of people were sort of messaging me like, how have you done that? Like, it's way past the deadline, but as long as the motion's in place, like, talk us through that process.
There's a few different pieces to that. So I will say, for one, the EFL and FA, as they're approving registering players, especially on deadline day, especially near the end, like, they can get backlogged, but they're time stamping everything you submit. So if we submit on time within the deadline, there's a chance they don't actually approve it themselves before the window, but it could come in overnight afterwards, like an hour or two after or whatever. So I think, like the Tanamu one, don't hold me to this. I think the Tanamu one actually was approved like 16 minutes before the deadline. The Ibrahim one, it was like after, but everything was submitted and it looked like we were pretty confident we would get approval and it would be fine. So that's why you wouldn't announce something until you're sure. And so those two, for example, were just so up against overnight that we just decided to wait and announce later. And then obviously Tanamu's stayed he's playing with the Nigerian national team anyways for international duty. So he hasn't come over yet, and that's why we haven't done any media or anything on that front. But when he gets here in about a week, we'll do it. So those were those two. I don't know if you had other examples or questions.
No, it's just I think people just often don't understand how many processes there are. That's just, I didn't understand until I started working in football, that it's not as simple as agree a fee, sign a contract. There's so much stuff like this, especially with Benjamin, because obviously playing in Tanzania and obviously in Nigeria, he's got to get the work permit, he's got to get the visa sorted. That stuff takes time, which is why we can't always necessarily announce on time. But I wanted to speak about Benjamin, actually. We had a lot of sort of questions online and sort of some funny comments. Like, how do you go about scouting someone from the Tanzanian Premier League? Because we know, obviously, data is such a big thing in our model. Is there a lot of data for those sort of leagues? Is that how you found Benjamin? Was he just sort of topping the charts, or was it sort of through another source? Talk us through that.
Sure. Great question. So, for example, last year people saw we recruited a lot out of non-leagues, and we thought there were a lot of players in National League or even lower that could make an impact at League 2 level. We're less confident that's the case at League 1 level, especially when you see some of the players and talent and the budgets that these other League 1 clubs have. So part of what we wanted to do was, can we do a similar thing, incorporating data and market assessment and everything internationally, where maybe that can be where our edge is, where relative to our budget, we're bringing in players that can really make an impact in League 1. Whereas we're less confident that 6-tier players can make an impact in League 1 right away. That's like a lot bigger risk in general. So for us, we brought in another player from the USL, Tola, who is pretty close to fit from what I gather so far. I feel safe saying that. I don't know if he'll get minutes quite yet against Stockport Saturday, possibly. If not, hopefully in the near future. So that's another one that we wanted to branch out after Jeremy Kelly last year. We had obviously Josh Flint, Ibrahim's coming from different countries. We had Max coming from another country. Then you have Nigeria with Benjamin. That one technically was playing in the Tanzanian Premier League, which is what Sam was referencing. He was one that came across. It's interesting. Look, for his age, we needed depth at the position, and it was one that Scott and his staff valued pretty heavily as far as bringing in another center back anyway. Everyone else that plays on the Nigerian national team plays at a pretty high level in Europe. And so we feel like there's, pretty good chance he's going to be at least good enough in League 1 and maybe even, better than this level. And so we're excited to have someone like that joining the squad, because I don't think that's a typical type of recruit for Crawley Town. So it was a little bit of a lot of different things, but part of our general, recruitment over the summer was branching out more and trying to use data and market analysis to bring in players that are being overlooked elsewhere, that we think have a better chance of making an immediate impact and helping us stay up than, say, 6-tier players, again, that maybe are good enough for League 2 here and there, but less confident that would be the case in League 1.
That's good insight. Let's move off the pitch. You've got a dinner next week. You're cooking for some fans in Reds. Oh, yeah. Talk us through that.
Do you actually? I haven't even. It's been up for maybe 24 hours. I could see
less. I think 4 or 5 so far.
Okay, I could see that being the ending number, and 4 show up next week. I could also see it actually selling out. It's only 10 people, but I'm excited. I enjoy cooking. I'm here it's something to like take my mind off things, but also just can talk to fans in a more intimate setting for 2 hours as opposed to a fans forum, which is formal and everyone's just raising their hand talking about the same thing. So happy to talk about literally anything next week for those that want to come say hello. And I'm not that bad at cooking. Usually cooking? I haven't decided quite yet. I'll probably do Italian food because it's easier to make for like groups. It's like a good start. So it should be pretty straightforward and nothing too crazy that people just won't like. I'm not sure. Do you guys say picky eaters?
Yeah.
If you're a picky eater, you'll be a fussy eater. This time won't be too much of a concern in the future maybe, but we'll see how it goes. And then if people like them, we can do them more regularly. But Wednesday. So next week, September 18th.
Nice. Yeah, obviously you're back on the ground, as the podcast says. Obviously you've been back in America, as you said, for a little while. So what are you looking forward to doing now you're back? Is it sort of more stuff like that? Is it sort of getting to, obviously you said you sat with the fans at Cambridge, doing more stuff like that? What's sort of next on your radar, I guess?
That's a good question. I wish I had time to like think about that.
Should have prepped you before that, yeah.
No, not even to answer the question. I just I feel like there's always something every day, and it's like, I got this meeting and then this meeting and this call, or we met for like 2 hours yesterday, just us talking social content strategies and media stuff. It's just like never ending. So my goals, a few more events like that would be great. How do we capitalize on Red's Bar? Can we keep it open more frequently? Can we do more events in the hospitality suite? That's something we're working with Rona and Faith on to try to do more good there and include fans in the community more frequently. Now that the window is over, I do have more time to do some other things. So a good piece of that is going to be, like I pitched this to Tom, for example. Excuse me. So we're talking through like roles where we have, a couple of new people that have come on, a couple that have gone out. We're trying to sort like, how can we better structure and organize the office infrastructure, right? The whole staffing. And one thing, I don't think Tom will mind if I say this, Tom, I'm sorry if you're going to get mad at me. One of the things he was like, look, if I can, he and you were there, I think Sunday for the Brighton women's match. Yeah. He's done those a long time. He's happy to do them. He also said, look, on the list of priorities and how I want to progress as an employee and a head of ops player here for the club, if I could take that off my plate, I could do other things. And I can put my value and my time in these. So that's something, for example, I would love to learn how to run and be here to make sure that a Brighton women's game is done successfully. So I told him, like, let me just come mirror you for 1 or 2 Brighton matches, and then I can be here on every Brighton home game, and that's something I can be a part of. So that's like another thing. I just want to try to really get down to learning the little things that they'll throw at you that happen, like emergencies on a day, or just making sure that everything's going smoothly. I'm sure there's like tons more, but those are a few of the things that we're going to focus on. We're going to try to do more content like this, or with Ben, or just potentially others coming in to help to just kind of tell our story a little better and a little more frequently. And from there, I think ticketing is another thing, and like merchandise that we've tried to capitalize on. We're going more digital. There'll be an announcement, I think, if it's not formal yet or official yet.
It could be before this goes out. It could be just
after. It could be. So look forward to that in general, but that'll be better for us as far as like tracking data and analytics on the demographic in Crawley and those that buy tickets and which tickets and what are they buying when in the club shop and what are they ordering online, and just trying to get a little more efficient on some of those day-to-day operational items. So, but that's boring. No one really wants to hear about that. So
I think they probably do, to be fair, because we've had lots of questions of people coming in and saying, like, what are you doing to capitalise on Wembley, stuff like that. We obviously did the merch ranges there, which did really well. But also, such a big thing of that was we had the data of 17,000 people, over half of which probably don't regularly come to Crawley games. So, I think that echoes what you're saying with the tickets and the merchandise. We are behind the scenes working on stuff, aren't we, to sort of pull them in, because we're already getting a great increase in attendances. We've averaged over 4,000 so far at home this year.
Great.
But we'll always be striving for more and pushing for sort of sellouts every week. But so far, I think we're doing a good job, aren't we, of just sort of trying to collect them all together, and then hopefully we'll be seeing a big return on that hope in the near future.
Yeah, that's the plan. I think, and it's no secret, I think even some of the club staff here referenced it to me like, we're run like a National League club, maybe even National League South, like in some ways. How do we improve those items, and going more digital or having better tracking to know your fan base and customer, so to speak, is obviously paramount in trying to maximize and capitalize the revenue for the club, which is essential when the club loses so much money every year. So those are things that we have to take under our wing and just do a better job of, and get more professional in general and overall. So I think those are 4 or 5 things that are just going to be constantly things we're trying to improve and build on. And I think part of what I want to make clear too is the fans are always giving feedback and advice, and just keep it coming. That's another reason why we can do a dinner next week and really get down to some of these ideas and thoughts, and like maybe there's something I'm not even thinking of yet that actually should be a priority that we should be doing. So it's a lot of that we'll be constantly like pivoting or changing what we feel like we can do to make the club better overall for whether it's football, whether it's in the office, or whether it's for the fans.
Definitely. A lot of that can be dictated by what happens on the pitch, though, can't it? Obviously, we can do as much as we can. Yeah, we can do as much as we can off the pitch, but ultimately, the good feeling around the club. I mean, I suppose you've seen it over the last couple of years, the highs and the lows. And do you still find it crazy how much like fan opinion and just general sort of feeling and morale around the club can change after a couple of wins?
After a couple of wins?
Or even just positive results.
Or losses, or just positive results.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised anymore. I learned that very quickly. I've said it multiple times. Like, the one thing I underestimated the most in year one was the impact that results have on fan sentiment, which is such an obvious thing. But when the results are that extreme, whether they're bad or good, like last season, it's just obviously night and day. But it changes everything. It changes things for you guys in the office. The attitude and vibe is different than it is after a loss. It's just how it is, because you're interviewing players and Scott, and their attitude's going to be different depending on the result. Like, it just all dominoes. So I'm not surprised anymore, but that was definitely something that I've had to learn and appreciate. And so what's interesting now about League One is we're not guaranteed to just have a bunch of really great results all the time that keeps the vibe up and positive. So how do we go about making meaningful change and getting things done in the office and on the pitch, despite maybe having like a Barnsley performance, right? And so it's part of the learning experience, both for the football players, the staff there, and then internally in the office. And, we might set out to do something like the Reds dinner could totally be a flop, but we got to try it. I just think it could be fun. It could be something fans appreciate. It's not like we're bringing in tons of money from it to like get a new player in January. Like it's not one of those. So there could be other things we try that are great. So it's just kind of being a little risky and feeling out some of those things and what works and what doesn't, and then seeing how we can make beneficial change permanently moving forward. So it's a mix of a lot of those things. But I think. I don't know if I have anything else on top of that. Let's leave it there.
Yeah. No, we referenced, obviously, we've had a little bit of a break after the Barnsley game called off against Burton for international call-ups. Perhaps has provided a good rest for the squad, and I suppose they're going to need it, aren't they, with the visit of Stockport at the weekend. Very tough opposition came up with us last year. Obviously, if they secured it automatically, it's going to be a hard game, isn't it? But as we've shown last season, we can beat anyone.
We can beat anyone. It is true. Stockport. Then the next run, Stockport, Wrexham, Bolton. I think those first three, at least I know, are top third in the league in XG differential so far. Stockport's number 1. So luckily we get them at home with extra rest and hopefully like a new mindset after that Barnsley performance. So I'm positive actually for Saturday, but in general, it's really hard. Probably as even, players and coaching staff to look at your next opponent. You're like, oh, geez. Like Wrexham played us really well both times last season. Like They play a low block. They don't actually. I think their last 2 games, Shrewsbury, I forget who they played prior. They won 3-0, I think, in both of them, with like 29% possession or something. Like, they don't mind giving you the ball, sitting back in a low block. It's really hard to get through them in the final third and get value shots against them. And then when you make a mistake, they counter and they capitalize on it. Like, Wrexham's been fantastic, and they did that to us last year, and then they've been doing it in League One so far. So Stockport, again, really, really sound defensively. They're never going to give up goals very frequently. And now we have the Corey Adai piece of it, which will be interesting. And hopefully everyone gives them a round of applause Saturday and is cool. But it's hard to look every week and we got to play them. We got to play them. It's League One's tough. But we're obviously confident because we've seen us, whether it's Blackpool, Cambridge, and then Wigan, who I thought we did outplay, just an unlucky result. We can do it, and we've done it in, like you said, other moments in other seasons. The Brighton performance is one. Like, is Brighton better than Wrexham or Stockport on average in a vacuum? Probably. And we played pretty well against them despite that result. So it just depends on the day. We just got to keep spirits high and keep the positivity, which hopefully fans can kind of help too, because the players are all over social media and they do see everything everyone says. And that's one thing that I think was hard for me to digest when we talk about fan sentiment in that first season, is a lot of it, you can yell at me and everything, and I have to take it, and that's fine, and I did. But players see a lot of it too. Like, when you're yelling at a player, it doesn't help. It really is harder to play the next week when everyone in the town you live in or play for is upset at you and think you're doing a poor job. So I think that's something that, as a whole, whether it's the players and coaching staff, office staff, or fans, it's just we got to do our best to give these guys an opportunity to succeed this season.
Yeah, and as you said there, obviously the return of Corey, we would have had a triple header, wouldn't we? I think, other than some minor mishaps. Obviously the Burton game got called off, so we didn't see Orsi, and I think when we played Bolton, Lolos might still be injured. He got a pretty bad injury for that one, which will maybe benefit us because we know what his talents are. But as you said there, it'd be nice for Corey to get a good reception, wouldn't it? Because at the end of the day, a lot of those players were only here for a year, but for many they'll be sort of the heroes that go on for winning promotion at Wembley, won't they?
Yeah, I think you said or referenced the other day when we were talking, it might have just been yesterday, but and I know you weren't speaking for all the fans, but you said, I don't imagine fans here in Crawley not giving a round of applause or applauding anyone from the promotion squad. It's like a forever thing, a forever moment in history now. So whether it's Corey or anybody else that we end up seeing, it should all be positive and celebrated. Personally, that's what I think. But
yeah, Will got a good reception, didn't he, when he came back here for Swindon? So I think even he referenced that on a podcast that he filmed. It was nice to sort of, because you never know what you're going to get as a player, and you get shouted at by your own fans enough when you play for the team, so you always think, oh God, what am I going to get when I come back? So, but no, it'd be nice for him to get a good reception. And
that's funny. Yeah.
As you say, it can have a big impact, can't it? Because you never want to be shouted at from either side, home or away.
Have you been shouted out? This is a total random question. We didn't really plan for this. Have you ever had opposing fans yell at you for something you've done in content or something, some piece of something, a question you asked or something you put out?
Not me personally. Okay. The only one where it got a little bit close was the Carlisle incident. Do you remember?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just kidding. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was
and you didn't really have anything to do with that. No. So just to be clear. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Although the next week, who did we play? Was it Leyton Orient that came and visited the next game? And their social media staff was so mad that we didn't have one for them. They were expecting it. They were so excited, and they were telling you, and I think Andy Haynes was here at the time, and some others what happened? So
no, that was the only time it got.
That wasn't Sam's fault.
No,
I'll take partial blame on that one.
Yeah. No, it'd be good to do a few more of these, wouldn't it? Obviously, we had a little bit of an extended break, and I think people maybe thought we abandoned them, but hopefully we'll be bringing them back more regularly.
And if people didn't like this one, it's okay. We're probably going to have a new host down the road, and we're kicking Sam out anyways. It'll be a lot better going forward. So I'm 49% joking, but it's actually possible that we might have another host sometimes helping out with some things, and Sam can focus on some other areas. And so we're excited, though, in general, because it just is more content and more activity on the social front. Anything else? I don't think there was.
No, I think that was all I had on my list. Unless you want to add any other bits that you thought about throughout the podcast, or we could wrap it up there.
No, I think we're good. Yeah, Matt, thanks as usual. Appreciate you.
Behind the lens.
Ooh, new podcast. You want to do some stuff like how to fix the mic stand before
behind the scenes
before we hit record? Yeah, behind the lens.
Where the mic stand doesn't stand up.
By the way, it was my idea that worked and fixed it. Just for the record, I'm going to take credit for that too. But yeah, take it away. Thank you, Sam.
No, thank you very much for joining us. Maybe I'll be back on the next one. Maybe I won't. Time will tell. But we'll see. In the meantime, thank you very much.